compensation. The farmers first sued Shell in 2008 over pollution in their villages, Goy, Oruma, and Ikot Ada Udo in southeastern Nigeria in a case backed by the Netherlands arm of Environment Group of Friends or Group Friends of the Earth. The court said, quote, in the Oruma cases, Shell Nigeria and Royal Dutch Shell are ordered to equip the pipeline with a leak detection system so that environmental damage can be limited in the future.
In other business news, Taiwan's GDP grew by nearly 3% last year. Official projections showed Friday, making the island one of the world's strongest performing economies during the coronavirus pandemic and surpassing China for the first time in 3 decades. Full-year gross domestic product was estimated at 2.98% for 2020, higher than a November forecast of 2.54%, according to preliminary data released by the Directorate General of Budget, Accounting and Statistics. The numbers were confirmation of Taiwan's remarkable success in navigating the coronavirus pandemic. It has recorded fewer than 900 cases and just 7 deaths after it swiftly locked down its borders. Wu Pei-Swan, an official at the top budgeting agency, said, because of our success in containing the pandemic, manufacturing activities and private consumption can continue to boost the economic growth. Taiwan's giant neighbor China grew 2.3%, a performance most countries would envy, but still its lowest place or pace in more than 4 decades. That means Taiwan's growth outpaced China for the first time since 1991. Taiwan's fourth quarter growth was especially strong thanks to exports, up 4.94% on year, the best quarterly performance since early 2011. Once again, the French economy shrank 8.3% in 2020 as the coronavirus outbreak plunged countries across Europe into their deepest recession since World War II. Statistics showed Friday as the prospect of another lockdown clouds the prospects for recovery this year. The drop was less than the 9% expected by Statistics Office, as well as the Bank of France, and much better than the government's own forecast for an 11% contraction, in large part thanks to a surge in consumer spending in December. Households splurged ahead of the holidays after the easing of a second nationwide lockdown to halt COVID-19 cases, with spending jumping 23% after an 18% slump in November. As a result, GDP fell just 1.3% in the fourth quarter, less than the 4% expected by most economists. The government deployed some 300
top banker accused of taking $260 million worth of bribes, other forms of corruption and bigamy, according to state broadcaster CCTV. Lai Xiaomin, the former chairman of Huawei, one of China's largest state-controlled asset management firms, was put to death by a court in the northern city of Tianjin. The amount of bribes received by Lai Xiaomin was extremely large. The crime circumstances were particularly serious, and the social impact was particularly severe. CCTV quoted the Chinese Supreme People's Court as saying, which reviewed and approved the execution order. The report did not specify how Lai was executed, but said he was allowed to meet with close relatives before his death. Chinese courts have a conviction rate of over 99%, and it's extremely rare for a death sentence to be overturned. The number of executions carried out annually is considered a state secret. Rights group Amnesty International estimates the country is the top executioner globally, with thousands executed and sentenced to death each year.
Meanwhile, a U.S. federal judge on Thursday gave the go-ahead to extradite to Japan two Americans who were arrested in May 2020 on suspicion of having helped former Renault Nissan boss regardless, Gozan flee Japan. Judge Indira Talwani ruled that Michael Taylor and his son Peter Taylor could not satisfactorily back up their claim that they would be subjected to conditions approaching torture in Japanese prison to merit breaching the extradition treaty between Tokyo and Washington. Michael Taylor, a former U.S. Special Forces member turned private security, and his son were arrested in May 2020 after Japan issued a warrant. Peter Taylor was apprehended in Boston as he was trying to leave the country for Lebanon, where Gon had taken refuge and where there is no extradition treaty with Japan. The two men have been imprisoned while awaiting the extradition hearing due to being considered flight risks. Japan has accused the Taylors, along with Lebanese George Antoine Zayek, of helping Gon escape justice by fleeing the country on December 29, 2019. At the time, he had been free on bail after facing accusations of financial misconduct. U.S. court documents show the three men allegedly tried to help Gon hide a large sum of money in a suitcase that looked like a musical instrument bag and then board a private jet.
As you know, the bigger cost, I think all car makers will adapt to.
Malaysian retail investors joined forces on social media and pushed up stocks of under-pressure rubber glove makers on Friday, taking inspiration from the recent GameStop trading phenomenon in the U.S. Shares of the U.S. video game shop chain surged from less than $20 to a peak of $492 earlier this week after millions of amateur investors active on online forum Reddit rallied together to punish short sellers by sending prices soaring. In short selling, investors borrow stock, sell it, and then buy it back at a lower price, keeping the difference. But if a stock unexpectedly soars, then investors are forced to buy it back at a loss. Inspired by the U.S. movement, Malaysian mom-and-pop investors Thursday set up their own Reddit group, naming it Bursa Bets after the country's stock exchange. Like the U.S. group Wall Street Bets, Bursa Bets became an online rallying spot for those urging people to buy and hold shares, in this case, targeting glove stocks. Malaysia is the world's top producer of latex gloves, and major producers saw their shares jump last year on strong demand due to the coronavirus pandemic.
In other business news, sales of smartphones made by Chinese telecom giant Huawei plunged in the latest quarter of 2020 as they were hit by U.S. sanctions on its suppliers, research firm Canalys said on Friday. Domestic sales fell 44% to 18.8 million units in October-December, according to data released by research firm Canalys. That comes after separate figures earlier this week from industry tracker International Data Corporation showed overseas shipments plunged 43% to 32 million. The administration of former President Donald Trump barred Huawei from the U.S. market, pressured allies to shun its telecom networking gear, and imposed a succession of escalating sanctions, including cutting off access to vital components. The Trump administration had said Huawei's telecom equipment installed globally could be used by China for espionage. Huawei has repeatedly denied the allegation, saying the U.S. government had never produced evidence of the charge and suggesting the moves were motivated more by national economic competition in the tech field.
Ready.
We have more updates for you. Please don't go away.
Traffic jams have been a major concern for us commuters and for the country as a whole. Thanks to motorcycle taxi services, we arrive and even our packages and deliveries reach their destinations on time. Even during the early phases of the lockdowns, bikers saved the day as essential services reached families to stay afloat and kept the economy running. In this episode of Open for Business, we have the voice that represents the country's motorcycle riders and owners whose efforts revolutionized the Philippines' mass public transport system.
Right now is the best time to create a business. Just do it. You have to start. Start it now.
One of the 7 The Outstanding Young Men or TOIM honorees for 2020, George Royeca, the Chief Transport Advocate of Angkas, will join us in this week's episode of Open for Business.
Ang ibig sabihin, dumami ang basura sa ating barangay.
Aha! Bakit ang daming basura?
Kayo pala nagtatapon ng mga basura, ha?
Di ba ang pinariringgan mo? Sandali! Okay!
May solusyon na ang problema natin sa basura. Kumanta, sumaya tayong lahat. Saya-saya.
Happy Peeps, make it a habit to watch Happy Time from Monday to Friday at 12 noon, only here on Net 25.
Happy time, happy time.
Welcome back. Former world number 1 Ratchanok in Tanon landed a crucial victory over Indian star PV Sindhu at badminton's World Tour Finals in Bangkok. It was a double victory for Thailand's hopes as 13th seed Pornpawi Chochuwong also booked a semi-final spot after a shock win over Taiwan's top-ranked Tai Chu Ying. Intanon trailed for most of the first game against Sindhu, but with a combination of balletic footwork and killer instinct, managed to come back to win 21-18. The 25-year-old Thai then took the second game 21-13 to claim the match. Both players were coming off an initial loss on the round-robin tournament. Sindhu, the Rio Olympic silver medalist, was beaten by Thai in a 3-game thriller on Wednesday. Meanwhile, 5th seed Intanon was upset by Chochuwong in 3 games on Wednesday too. On Thursday, Chochuwong, 22, went into her match having never won a game against Thai in previous encounters, but won 21-17, 21-11 in 37 minutes.
Meanwhile, tennis stars Novak Djokovic, Serena Williams, and Naomi Osaka play at an exhibition in Adelaide in front of a near-full crowd at a Memorial Drive just hours after emerging from 2 weeks quarantine. Watch this.
We didn't play in front of this much crowd for 12 months, so this is definitely something very special.
And finally in our news, a portrait by Italian Renaissance painter Sandro Botticelli sold for $92 million at an online Sotheby's auction, smashing the record price for the artist. The final price, including fees and commissions, was $92.2 million after it sold under the hammer for $80 million. Now, Sotheby's said the final price That includes fees and commissions was 92.2 million. After it sold Under the Hammer for 80 million, it becomes the second most valuable old master painting ever auctioned after Leonardo da Vinci's Salvador Mundi went for 450.3 million at a Christie's sale in 2017. Botticelli, who lived from the 1440s to 1510, is one of the most celebrated painters of the early Renaissance period, but only about a dozen examples of his work survive today. His best-known works are The Birth of Venus and Primavera.
That's gorgeous. I want one in my living room. That's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. Please join us again tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. But before we go, I would like to say our deepest sympathies and condolences to our EBC Bureau's Jennifer Ringwood, whose mother died a few days ago. Our sincerest condolences. Jennifer, from your EBC family. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
Huwag tayong mag-alala. Kung ganito man, kalala ang problema ng mundo, tandaan ninyo, meron tayong Diyos na handang-handang tumulong sa atin. Ang kailangan ay makita ng Diyos yung pagkakaisa, pagtutulong-tulong at yung kasipagan ng tao sa kanyang paghahanap buhay.
Ang buhay dito sa mundo